The wind screamed down 4th Street, like a beast let loose, sharp and merciless. It clawed through the frayed seams of Logan McCrae's coat, slicing into his skin as if to remind him of everything he couldn't afford to fix. The soles of his second-hand boots squeaked against the salted pavement, his breath forming pale ghosts in the bitter air. Balanced in one arm was a heat-insulated pizza bag, in the other his world, his daughter. 3-year-old Hazel, wrapped in a too-large coat that dwarfed her frame, lay asleep on his shoulder, her pink cheeks kissed by the cold, thumbs still curled near her lips. Her wool hat kept slipping, threatening to slide past her eyebrows with each step. He was late. Again. A familiar vibration pulsed against his thigh. Another customer growing impatient, but Logan didn't look. Let them wait. Between his 3 dead-end jobs, a looming custody battle, and the constant ache of doing it all alone since Holly's passing, texts could wait. Life wouldn't. He muttered an apology to the wind and pushed forward, his eyes fixed on the faded numbers of a brick building. 842, West 4th Street, apartment 302. Of course, no elevator. Then came the sound. A dull, heavy thud. Not metallic, not loud, just sickening. The kind of sound that makes time stumble. Logan's head snapped around. An elderly man, maybe in his 70s, lay sprawled in the middle of the crosswalk. Groceries scattered like forgotten memories around his crumpled body. Cars honked. No one moved. Logan did. He turned to a woman nearby. She stood tall, mid-30s maybe, in a tailored gray wool coat that whispered money. Her eyes were dark and tense, but more than that, they were present. She wasn't distracted or filming. She saw. "Can you hold her?" Logan asked, the words urgent, rushed. The woman blinked. "My daughter," he said, already shifting Hazel into her arms. "Please, just don't move." There wasn't time to wait for consent. He bolted into the intersection, kneeling beside the old man, shielding him with his own body. The man was breathing, but his face was bloodied and his skin a ghostly pale. Logan's own fingers began to turn crimson from the cold, but he didn't move. He barked orders at the crowd. "Call 911. Help, please." Somewhere behind him, Hazel stirred. The woman now holding her had stepped back from the street, clutching the little girl close. Hazel's face scrunched, unfamiliar arms surrounding her. A whimper. But then stillness. The woman rocked gently side to side, murmuring something soft and audible. Hazel quieted. By the time the ambulance wailed into view, Logan was trembling, his coat now wrapped around the old man, his own body exposed to the biting wind. A paramedic knelt beside him. "You the one who called it in?" he asked. Logan shook his head. "Just saw it happen." "You're freezing. Let us check you out." "I've got a delivery," Logan said, half smiling as he rose to his feet. His legs ached from kneeling. He turned to retrieve Hazel, and there she was, still in the woman's arms. Hazel's thumb was back in her mouth, sleep tugging her eyelids down again. "Thanks," Logan said, stepping closer. "I didn't mean to." "You did the right thing," the woman interrupted, her voice low, rich with warmth. He reached for Hazel. The toddler looked between them, studying faces as if deciphering a language only children understand. Then, without resistance, she reached for her father. He gathered her up, tucking her into the crook of his arm like a secret he couldn't afford to lose. "We should get going," he said softly. The woman nodded. "Be safe." He hesitated, then offered a smile, tentative, tired, but real. "You too." She didn't smile back, but she watched him walk away, like she wasn't quite ready to let him go. 5 minutes later, Logan's legs burned as he climbed the last of the 3 flights. Hazel slept again, pizza bag slung over his back like a battered shield. He knocked. The door creaked open. A young guy in sweatpants scowled. "You're late." "Traffic," Logan muttered, handing over the box with a forced smile. $2. That's all the guy tipped. The door slammed. Logan stared at it, heart pounding, not from exertion, but from something else. Something heavier. Back in the car, he strapped Hazel into her seat. She hummed some nonsense tune in her half-sleep. Logan reached to adjust her sleeve, and froze. Pinned to the fabric was a business card. Heavy stock. No name. Just an elegant gold-embossed logo. Hallberg and Associates. He turned it over. Nothing on the back. Weird. But it was her. It had to be. That woman. Those eyes, beautiful, yes, but haunted. She hadn't looked at Hazel like a stranger's child. She looked at her like she mattered. Like Hazel belonged. Logan tried to dismiss it. He had more urgent things to worry about. Past due rent. Hazel's court date. A cold apartment, and no backup plan if things fell apart. From the back seat, Hazel mumbled sleepily. "Daddy?" Pretty lady smelled like Mama. The car swerved. Logan corrected it quickly. He didn't respond. Just gripped the wheel harder and blinked the burn from his eyes. He didn't have time for ghosts. That night, Logan stood at the sink, sleeves rolled past his elbows, rinsing the last dish from their simple dinner. The faucet wheezed as if begging for mercy. Hazel sat behind him in a heap of battered stuffed animals, flipping through a worn-out board book. The apartment was a patchwork of survival. One bedroom, a living room that doubled as their playground, and Logan's makeshift bed. The wind outside pressed against the windows like an uninvited guest. "Bath or story first?" Logan asked, drying his hands. "Story," she said, without looking up. "You always say that." He smiled, pulling her into his lap. They read Goodnight Moon, the pages frayed and stained with memory. By the third page, Hazel had drifted off, her breath steady against his chest. Logan carried her to the bedroom and lingered at her side, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "You're all I've got, baby girl," he whispered, "and I'm going to fight like hell to keep it that way." At 10 p.m., he opened the email that had been sitting in his inbox all day. The one from the attorney representing Holly's estranged sister, Tamara Hamilton. Subject, custody hearing update, McCrae versus Hamilton. The Hamiltons had filed an urgent motion, claiming Logan was unfit, poor, unstable, unworthy. A social worker would be visiting, unannounced, sometime in the next 10 days. Logan leaned back in his rickety chair. The weight of everything, loss, love, exhaustion, pressed against his chest. Tamara, who had never even met Hazel, was trying to take her away. He had no family left. Just Hazel. Just this. He pulled out the folder he kept in the kitchen drawer. Birth certificate, medical records, proof of employment. Everything he had to prove that love was enough. But he knew judges didn't rule on love. They ruled on bank accounts and square footage. A knock at the door startled him. Mrs. Conway, widow from 3B. "I made chicken pot pie," she said. "You're looking skinnier than your paycheck." Logan chuckled. "You didn't have to." "I know," she replied, stepping inside. Her eyes took in the taped windows, the worn toys. She softened. "You need anything?" she said. "You ask." "I'm managing." "I didn't say you weren't," she smiled. "But even the strongest folks need a minute to breathe." Before she left, she looked at him and said, "You're a good father, Logan. I see it. Others will too." After she was gone, Logan sat again, drowning in paperwork and pressure. No matter how hard he swam, the tide pulled harder. His gaze drifted to the business card on the counter. Hallberg and Associates. Still no phone number. No clue who she was. But that day, she had seen Hazel. Not pitied her. Seen her. Hazel whimpered from the bedroom. Logan knelt beside her, her tiny fingers wrapped around his. "I'm not giving up," he whispered. "Even if I have to crawl through fire, I'll find a way." The next morning, frost clung to every surface like regret. Logan bundled Hazel up, her pink parka swallowing her frame. The engine groaned, but the car started. Halfway down the street, the heater gave up. At the red light, Hazel's soft voice reached him through the rearview mirror. "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart." "Will we always be together?" The question cut deeper than the cold. Logan reached back, squeezing her tiny boot. "Always, kiddo. No matter what." But even as he said it, something inside him twisted. Because always was only a word, and the world didn't care how fiercely you loved your child. It only cared whether you could prove it. On paper. In court. with bank statements and square footage. And Logan, he was running out of proof. But not out of fight. Not yet. The gas station air hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and wet asphalt, humming with the low buzz of fluorescent lights. Logan stood at the counter, face carved by fatigue, watching the teenage clerk ring up his meager purchase with the kind of detached boredom that comes from seeing too many desperate faces day after day. 62, the kid muttered, barely meeting his eyes. Logan slid the few precious coins across the counter, murmured a weary thank you, and turned to leave, then stopped cold. She was there, the woman from that day. Same gray coat, same composed elegance. She looked entirely out of place in a run-down roadside station off Interstate 71, like she belonged in a Manhattan office tower with sweeping skyline views, not next to a rack of gossip magazines and beef jerky. Elena. She hadn't seen him yet. She was scanning the magazine covers, a bottle of water in one hand, a manila envelope in the other. Then her gaze lifted and met his. No jolt of surprise, no warm flicker of recognition, just a quiet, assessing calm in her eyes. Hazel, perched on Logan's hip, broke the silence with a bright squeal. Pretty lady. Logan flushed. Hazel. But Elena smiled, just barely, and stepped forward. Hi again, she said gently. Logan adjusted Hazel, trying to steady the sudden tremble in his chest. Didn't expect to see you here. I was just passing through, she replied, tone light. Needed gas. And a moment to breathe. He nodded. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, not tense, just filled with things unsaid. He made to move past her, but she raised a hand. I saw the footage, she said, soft as snowfall. Of you saving that man. Logan froze mid-step. Footage. Her expression didn't change, but her voice softened. Someone filmed it. It's been circulating, human interest forums, mostly. I don't follow much online, he mumbled, eyes narrowing. I know. But you should know. You're a good man, Mr. McCrae. His shoulders locked. You don't know me. I know what I saw. His voice sharpened. You saw 30 seconds. You didn't see the rest. The bills. The cold nights with no heat. The court that thinks I'm too poor to raise my own daughter. She didn't flinch. No, I didn't. But I'd like to. He blinked, momentarily speechless. Why? Instead of answering, Elena crouched to Hazel's eye level, her voice a soft breeze. Because when someone trusts you with the most important part of their life, even for a moment, that's not something you forget. Hazel giggled and reached for her. Logan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, the tension seeping out of his tired frame. You want to sit? He asked. There's a bench outside. I've got 10 minutes before I have to be back on the road. Outside, the winter air nipped, but didn't bite. They sat on a wooden bench near the air pump, Logan cradling Hazel close, Elena resting the envelope on her lap. You didn't answer my question, Logan said after a pause. Why you're really here? She looked at him, steady and unflinching. I work for a foundation. We invest in grassroots resilience projects, mechanic training, apprenticeship programs, small business incubators. I travel a lot, meeting the people we might support. He narrowed his eyes. So what? I'm a charity case now. No, she said gently but firmly. You're someone who did something remarkable when no one else did. You acted while others froze. And you trusted a stranger with your whole world. Her words sank deep, slow and steady like rain into parched earth. What do you want from me? Nothing, she said, voice like still water. I'm just following up. She opened the envelope and handed him a brochure. Community Trades Initiative, pilot program candidates. He scanned it. Mechanical training, paid apprenticeships, childcare included, a fresh start in print. I'm not a student, he said guarded. You're not just a delivery guy either, she countered. You used to be an engineer, didn't you? His gaze snapped to hers. How do you know that? She hesitated. I looked you up. After the video. His jaw tensed. So you've been researching me? I've been curious, she said carefully. Not judging. Just trying to understand. He looked back at the brochure, a future glimmering faintly on the page. It didn't seem real. People like him didn't get lifelines. Not without hidden strings. I don't even have a resume. You've got grit, she said. Integrity. The rest we can build. He looked at Hazel, her little body limp with trust against his chest. Looked at the street, where a shy sun was finally starting to pierce the clouds. Then he looked back at Elena. Something about her didn't quite add up. She was too polished, too reserved. But there was sorrow in her eyes. A kind of quiet ache he recognized. He took the folder gently, like it might disappear if he moved too fast. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I'm asking. They stood. Elena crouched again and waved to Hazel. Will we see the pretty lady again? Hazel asked, drowsy. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. I hope so. Logan watched her go. No driver, no entourage, just a woman in gray, vanishing into the morning like a breeze. As he buckled Hazel into her seat, he glanced again at the folder. He didn't trust Easy anymore. But this didn't feel like a handout. It felt like a door. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to knock. The courtroom smelled faintly of lemon polish and cold protocol. Logan sat stiff in a borrowed blazer, the sleeves too long, the collar itching his neck. He dressed the part, at least, like someone who tried, who cared. Across the aisle sat Tamara Hamilton, his late wife's sister, posture ramrod straight, face like carved stone. Her designer coat looked untouched by winter, her lips tight with disapproval. Beside her, Derek leaned in and whispered something. She nodded without acknowledging Logan at all. Hazel wasn't there. Thank God. He'd left her with Mrs. Conway, promising to be back by lunch. Hazel didn't need to see this, to witness how close the system had come to prying her away. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Marilyn Faulkner entered, brisk and unsmiling, her silver hair sharp as her gaze. Tamara's lawyer rose first, dissecting Logan's life with surgical cruelty. Part-time jobs, no health benefits, tiny apartment, recent incident where Hazel was seen alone near a public intersection. Logan's stomach clenched. They submitted the video. A grainy phone clip. It showed him dashing toward a collapsed stranger. Hazel was off frame. The angle made it look damning. His attorney's objection was overruled. Then Tamara testified. She didn't hate Logan, she claimed. She just wanted Hazel to have more. Structure. Stability. A backyard. A nanny. She referred to Hazel only as the child. Logan rose slowly when it was his turn. His voice trembled, but held. I may not have a backyard, he said, or a trust fund, but I have something Tamara doesn't. I have her. Every skinned knee, every bedtime story, every bad dream, I'm there. I know the way she hums when she colors. I know what makes her laugh. I know my daughter. He faced the judge. Yes, we live small. Yes, I work 3 jobs. But I've never let her go hungry. Never let her feel alone. Isn't that what being a parent means? Judge Faulkner gave nothing away. Her face unreadable. We'll recess. Logan walked into the hallway and sank onto a bench, his hands buried in his face. He was losing. Every sacrifice. Every sleepless night. It might not be enough. Then footsteps. He looked up. A young court clerk carried an envelope toward the judge's chambers. Behind her, Elena. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just nodded calm, poised. 15 minutes passed, then 20. They were called back. Judge Faulkner adjusted her glasses. Before this court rules, we've reviewed additional evidence submitted during recess, she said. Security footage. A traffic camera at 4th and Broad. Logan's heart stuttered. The video clearly shows Mr. McCrae placing the child into the care of a bystander before approaching the injured party. The bystander is identified as an adult female who remains with the child throughout. Tamara's lawyer objected. Overruled, the judge snapped. The evidence is clear. No neglect occurred. She paused. Custody will remain with the child's father. The room tilted. Logan barely heard Tamara hiss and storm out. All he felt was the weight of a miracle in his hands as the clerk handed him the final documents. He had her. Hazel was his. Outside, Elena stood by the curb. He walked to her, stunned. "It was you." She nodded. The footage was there. No one thought to look. "You did." "I had to," she said. "The court needed the truth." "So did you." He struggled to speak. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't owe me anything." Why are you doing this?" She hesitated. "Because once someone watched me fall, and did nothing. And I've wished every day since for someone like you." The wind swept between them. Two lives scarred, two souls carrying invisible weights. He didn't say thank you. Not yet. The moment was too big for small words. But as she turned and walked away, fading once again into the quiet, Logan felt something he hadn't in a long time. He wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, neither was she. It was after 9 when Logan finally got Hazel to sleep. Her warm little body curled against his chest like a comma at the end of a long sentence. Her breath came in soft, steady puffs. Her fingers tangled in his shirt. She was safe. She was his. And for the first time in years, that truth didn't teeter on a knife's edge. He rose quietly and tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and went to double-check the front door. That's when he saw it. A package. Small, wrapped in plain brown paper, resting gently against the doorframe. No label, no return address, just his name, written in delicate cursive. He brought it inside, his hands cautious, breath held. He unwrapped it beneath the kitchen light, heart heavy with wonder, and something else. Inside the box, nestled beneath layers of careful intention, was a small winter coat, navy blue, plush with fleece, and so pristine it looked like it had stepped out of a catalog. Logan couldn't stop staring at it. He ran his calloused fingers across the soft sleeves. This coat easily cost more than what he'd scraped together working all day. And beneath it, tucked like a secret, was something smaller, wrapped gently in tissue paper. With hesitant hands, Logan peeled back the layers and revealed a wooden music box, simple, worn, but exquisitely carved, each edge smoothed by time and touch. He lifted the lid. A melody spilled out, soft and aching, familiar in a way that made his heart clench. Inside the lid, a message had been burned into the wood in the smallest, most delicate script. To the child who deserves every story to end with the happy one. He froze. The words gripped him. His throat tightened. Elena. He didn't know how she'd found his address, but somehow, he wasn't surprised. She moved through the world like smoke, quiet, unseen, yet impossible to ignore. And this wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It felt like something far more personal. An offering made not with expectation, but with tenderness. A whisper of hope, not a declaration. And that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. The next morning, Hazel squealed with joy. "It has pockets," she exclaimed, stuffing her tiny hands inside and spinning in delight, the coat puffing out around her like armor made of love. "Can I wear it now?" Logan smiled, the ache in his chest softening. "It's yours, sweetheart. Go ahead." He wanted to ask her about the music box, to see if the song touched her the way it touched him, but she had already placed it beside her coloring books, as if it had always belonged. Later that day, Logan began sifting through the kitchen drawer cluttered with old receipts and expired coupons. His fingers brushed against a yellowed envelope, the last letter Holly had written him. It had arrived 2 weeks after she passed, something she dropped into the hospital's outgoing mail when she was still recovering from the C-section that nearly stole her life. He'd never been able to read it again. Until now, with trembling fingers, he opened it. "Logan, if you're reading this, things didn't go the way we hoped. I know you're scared. I know you're exhausted. But please know this. You don't have to do it all alone, not forever. When the time comes, you'll feel it. Trust that. Let someone in. Let Hazel see what love looks like, real love, healing love. Love again. Always. Holly." The words sliced through him, like a shaft of light breaking through a cracked door. He pressed the letter against his chest and closed his eyes, the lullaby from the music box playing faintly from the next room. 2 days later, he stood in front of the community center, Elena's foundation folder tucked under his arm. He hadn't told a soul he was going. Part of him still wavered. Another part, deeper, quieter, braver, knew that change rarely came dressed as certainty. It came as risk, as a whisper, as a dare. Inside, the air buzzed with the energy of new beginnings. People of every shape and shade, nervous yet resolute, filled the space. Logan signed his name on the sheet. "Mr. McCrae?" He turned. The voice wasn't Elena's. It belonged to a woman in her early 30s, clipboard in hand, kind eyes behind glasses. "Hi, I'm Kendra. I handle onboarding for the Community Trades Initiative. Elena said you might stop by." Logan blinked. "She mentioned me?" Kendra smiled. She said, "Look for the guy who doesn't know he's already a leader." She pulled a handwritten note from the folder and handed it to him. He unfolded it. "Logan, showing up is the hardest part. You've already done that. Welcome to the next step." He exhaled, something loosening inside him. Not just tension, momentum. "Let's get you settled," Kendra said gently. They walked past classrooms filled with tools and projects, past people quietly building, learning, hoping. For the first time in years, Logan realized he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was stepping into something new. That night, as he tucked Hazel into bed, she whispered sleepily, "Daddy, I like the pretty lady." He chuckled. "Yeah, me too. Will she come back?" He paused, heart caught in his throat. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I hope so." Hazel turned toward the music box and pressed play. The melody filled the room. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Logan didn't dread tomorrow. Maybe their story hadn't ended. Maybe it had just turned the page. The boiler hissed again. Logan crouched in the hallway, wrench in one hand, flashlight clenched between his teeth. The heat had been unreliable, freezing in the living room, sweltering in the bathroom. Hazel sat wrapped in a blanket, coloring a horse that looked suspiciously like a lumpy dog. "I think he needs shoes," she said proudly, holding up the drawing. Logan glanced over, teeth chattering. "Sweetheart, I think he needs a whole new skeleton." Hazel giggled. A knock interrupted the moment. 2 sharp raps. Logan exchanged a glance with Hazel, wiped his hands, and opened the door. Elena stood there, cheeks pink from the cold, thermos in her hands, hair curled around her collar like a memory. "I brought coffee," she said, holding it out, "and a space heater. My car's full of them. We're donating through the foundation. Thought maybe you could use a head start." He stared at her, startled. "You're serious?" "I am," she said with a sheepish smile. Behind him, Hazel gasped. "Pretty lady." Elena waved. "Hi, Hazel. I missed you." Hazel beamed, a rare treasure of a smile. Logan hesitated. Then, "You want to come in?" Inside, Elena crouched beside Hazel, accepting a wobbly rainbow, drawing like it belonged in a gallery. Then she joined Logan at the tiny kitchen table. Her eyes scanned the clutter, but she said nothing. No judgment, just presence. The coffee she brought was rich and real, nothing like the instant sludge he'd grown used to. The music box played softly from the living room. Hazel's new ritual, her lullaby. Logan nodded toward it. "Was that yours?" Elena's fingers tightened around her mug. "Yes, my father gave it to me when I was a little girl. It's one of the only things I kept after he passed." Logan watched her. "You don't talk about your family much." "That's because there's not much worth saying." He waited. She glanced at Hazel. Then, her voice barely above a whisper, "I was 17 when I found out I was pregnant. My mother was furious, said I'd ruined everything. We were a legacy family. We didn't make headlines for the wrong reasons." She swallowed. "My father wasn't much better, just quieter about it. They sent me away, told me to have the child, signed the paper, and pretend none of it happened. So I did." She looked down. "I didn't even hold her. I signed the paper. I walked away. Not because I didn't want to hold her, because I knew if I did, I'd never be able to let go." Silence filled the room, dense and fragile. "What happened after?" Logan asked gently. "I buried it," she said. "Graduated, built a company, created a life no one could control. but the hole stayed. Quiet. Deep. She inhaled shakily. Then one day, I saw a man hand his daughter over to a stranger in the middle of chaos. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. About you. About her. About the child I left behind. Logan leaned back, breath shallow. That's why you helped me. No, she said, meeting his gaze. I helped you because you deserved it. I stayed because I wasn't ready to walk away again. Hazel came over then, a paper crown folded from her rainbow masterpiece. She gently placed it on Elena's head. You're the queen, she announced. Elena laughed, tears slipping down her cheek. That's a first. Logan watched them, something breaking open in him. Something warm, vulnerable, dangerous. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Giving her up? Every single day, she said. But that pain taught me what matters. And I'm trying in my own flawed way to honor that. He nodded slowly. You're not the only one who buried something. She looked up. When Holly died, I shut down. Told myself Hazel was enough. That love like that only happens once, and I was lucky to have had it even once. He paused. But lately, I've started to wonder. Maybe the heart isn't a one-shot organ. Maybe it's expandable. Elena's breath caught, and in that tiny apartment, with its broken heater, chipped mugs, and mismatched chairs, something real bloomed between them. Not romance, not yet, but truth. As the sun dipped low, Elena reached for her coat. I've taken enough of your time. Not at all, Logan said softly. At the door, she hesitated. You know, you're doing better than you think. Is that a professional opinion? She smiled. No, just a woman who sees what's real. He opened the door. The wind had softened. Snow fell like powdered starlight. From behind them came Hazel's voice. Bye, Mommy. Both adults froze. Elena turned, eyes wide. Logan looked at her, really looked, and saw something raw flash across her face. She didn't mean, he started. But Elena shook her head, voice cracking. No, it's okay. And then she stepped into the fading light, her coat trailing behind her like the last page of a story that maybe wasn't over. The storm rolled in fast, sleet slicing the sky over Cincinnati, glazing the streets in danger. Logan wrapped Hazel tighter in her coat, securing the scarf with shaking hands. She clutched her stuffed rabbit like it was armor. He lifted her into his arms and ran across the parking lot, slipping on black ice as the clinic doors hissed open. Inside, the heat fogged his glasses. The receptionist looked up, bored, then sat up straight. She's burning up, Logan said. Hoarse voice. Fever started this afternoon. Now she's not herself. The receptionist clicked keys. Do you have insurance? Logan hesitated. Just Medicaid for her. She handed him a clipboard. It's a 2-hour wait. Hazel whimpered in his arms, fever burning beneath her skin. Logan stared at the form and prayed to no one in particular for the strength to keep going. She didn't mean it harshly. The woman's voice carried no malice, but her words landed like stones. She can't wait 2 hours. I'm sorry. The triage nurse will see her soon. We're at capacity. Logan sat motionless in a corner chair, its plastic worn thin by too many desperate bodies before his. He held Hazel against his chest, her small frame trembling gently in his arms. He whispered to her, soft reassurances, though not even he believed them. The waiting room was bathed in harsh fluorescent light and the low, oppressive hum of quiet desperation. He counted the seconds, watched the fragile flutter of his daughter's eyelids, felt panic tighten its fist inside his chest. 15 minutes bled into 20. Still no sign of movement. He glanced at his phone. No new messages. No miracles. He'd exhausted every favor, every last plea, last month. His gas tank was running on fumes, and the pitiful balance in his account might have stretched to cold medicine if he skipped dinner, but not enough for a private pediatrician. Hazel's head lolled to the side, breath shallow. A whisper escaped him, not to anyone in particular, but to whatever might be listening. Please, please don't let this be the moment I lose her. Then her name. Logan. He looked up, dazed. Elena. She stepped through the glass doors like a breath of clean air, her coat soaked from sleet, her eyes wide with worry. "I got your voicemail," she said, breath catching. "What happened?" "I didn't." He stopped, checked his phone, realized the last call he'd made, in his frenzy, had gone to her. An accidental dial, or maybe not. He swallowed the lump in his throat. "She's sick. I can't get anyone to see her." Elena's gaze dropped to Hazel, and her expression sharpened with unwavering focus. "Come with me," she said. "Elena, I can't afford." "I didn't ask." 20 minutes later, they were in the back of a private clinic on the edge of downtown. Elena had driven like a woman possessed, slicing through the slush with terrifying grace, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Inside, there was no wait. The nurse didn't even take Logan's name before waving them in. Within 5 minutes, a pediatrician arrived, a calm man with tired eyes and the gentlest touch. Hazel whimpered quietly on the table, too exhausted to protest. "Her fever's high," the doctor murmured, "but the good news is it's viral, not bacterial. We'll cool her down, get fluids in her. She's strong. She'll pull through." Logan sagged into the chair, the relief washing over him in warm waves, like rain after drought. Elena stood by the door, arms crossed over her damp coat, still dripping with melting snow. "You didn't have to do this," he said softly. "I know," she replied, "but I wasn't about to watch you sit there and let her get worse. Not when I could do something." His eyes searched hers. This is more than help." She looked away, then back at him. "Maybe I needed to feel needed." A silence settled, not cold but raw. "I'm sorry," he blurted. "For what?" "For pushing you away. For not seeing how much you cared." Elena tilted her head slightly. "I'm not here for thanks, Logan. I'm here because I know what it feels like to be helpless. And I've learned, if you have the power to ease someone else's fear, you use it, no matter what it costs." He blinked, his throat tight. "You talk like someone who learned that the hard way." "I did." More silence, this time mutual. "Healing." The doctor returned with a blanket and a gentle smile. "She's already improving. Stable. Give it an hour. You can take her home." Later that evening, Logan carried Hazel, now sleeping peacefully, into their apartment. Elena followed, holding a bag of prescriptions and a container of soup, steam still warming the plastic lid. He tucked Hazel in gently, pressing a kiss to her fever-warmed forehead. When he returned to the kitchen, Elena was at the stove, ladling soup into bowls, without waiting to be asked. "You didn't have to stay," he said. "I know," she replied with that same steady grace. "But I wanted to." They sat together, two mismatched mugs of tea between them. The silence between them was no longer strained. It was familiar, even comforting. "Today scared me," he confessed. "I've handled a lot since Holly died, but I haven't felt that helpless since that night." Elena reached across the table and laid her hand over his. Her touch was soft, steady, real. "You're not alone anymore, Logan." He looked at her hand, the warmth of it, the promise it carried. "You say that like it's a promise." "It is." And something in him, something brittle and barricaded, softened. He didn't say the words aloud. Not yet. But inside, a spark of belief kindled. That night, as wind howled against their windows and the old radiator ticked its uneven lullaby, Logan sat in the armchair beside Hazel's bed. He watched her breathe, in and out, in and out. Safe. Alive. The music box on the dresser whispered its melody, and across the room, Elena sat silently. Her presence wasn't loud or demanding. It simply was. Solid. Anchoring. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something else stirred. Not just safety. Not just healing. But the tentative beginning of something neither of them had dared to believe in. A future. Sunlight filtered through the cheap blinds of Logan's apartment, striping the floor with warm gold. Hazel, now fully recovered, was kneeling on the rug, her small hands constructing a tower of plastic blocks, her brow furrowed in concentration, her tongue peeking from the corner of her mouth. At the counter, Logan poured coffee into 2 mismatched mugs. He added oat milk to one, left the other black. Elena never touched the oat milk when he offered. He noticed things like that now. She sat by the window, elbows propped on the sill, watching the city slowly thaw. The February chill still whispered through the walls, but the snow clinging to the curbs was melting, reluctantly, but melting all the same. He handed her the mug and sat opposite. "You didn't have to stay overnight," he said gently. "I know," she replied, her eyes still distant, "but I didn't want to leave." "Daddy, look." Hazel called. "It's a castle." He smiled. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Elena turned and nodded with mock solemnity. "Very royal." Hazel beamed, then returned to her task. The silence between them held something new. Not intimacy, not yet, but the shape of it, the beginning of realness. Elena took a slow sip, then set the mug down. "There's something I want to ask you." Logan straightened, bracing. She reached into her bag and withdrew a folder. It was different from before. Sleek, labeled in neat type, Logan McCrae. "I want to offer you something," she said, "but you have to promise you'll hear me out." He raised a brow but nodded. "We've just launched a transitional program, part of our trades initiative. It's more than training. It's salary placement, child care, health care, and eventually, ownership track for contractors." He felt his throat close. "That sounds like it's for someone a lot more qualified than me." Elena opened the folder. Inside were evaluations, handwritten notes, and a photo. Him, taken during a training session. Sleeves rolled up, hands demonstrating a repair. He didn't even know anyone had been watching. "I sat in on your workshop," she said. "You didn't just fix things, Logan. You taught people how to believe they could fix things too. That's leadership. That's what we need." He stared at the photo. It didn't feel like him. It looked like someone whole, capable, like a man who hadn't stood on the brink of collapse 3 weeks ago. "I don't want a handout," he said. "This isn't a handout. It's an investment. Not just from me, from everyone who believes in what you bring." He swallowed. "I'm not used to people believing in me." "Maybe it's time you get used to it." Hazel's voice broke the silence. "Daddy, I made a garden on the roof." He looked. She had added a layer of green blocks on top. A rooftop garden. Of course she did. Elena smiled at the child's imagination, then leaned in. Her voice softened. "I know what it's like to be offered something you don't think you deserve, to believe that accepting help is weakness. But sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing we do." He looked at her, not just at her words, but her being. She wasn't offering him a job. She was offering him trust, a future. He reached for the folder. "Is there a deadline?" "End of the month," she replied. "But spots are filling. And it's not just a job. You'd be mentoring the next generation, shaping something bigger than yourself." He sat back, trying to breathe past the knot in his throat. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about becoming. "I'll think about it," he said at last. "I know," she whispered. "Whatever you choose, that's yours." Later, as she gathered her coat, Hazel wrapped her arms around Elena's legs. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Elena smiled, crouching. "Maybe not tomorrow, sweetheart, but soon. Can you stay forever?" Her eyes flicked up to Logan, softened. Her voice was a whisper. "Wouldn't that be something?" Logan walked her to the door. "I meant what I said. I'll think about it." "I know," she said again. Then, more quietly, "Sometimes, when the storm clears, what's left behind isn't ruin. It's space. Space for something new." She left, and Logan stood staring down the hall long after she disappeared. He looked at Hazel, humming on the floor, her crown made of Lego bricks. Maybe the storm hadn't broken him. Maybe it had broken open something far more important. And maybe, just maybe, he was finally ready to step into the light. He couldn't quite name the feeling that brought him here tonight. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe a quiet sense of obligation. Or maybe something deeper, a silent, persistent ache to prove, to someone or something, that he belonged more than just the background, that he was worthy of more than survival. Perhaps it was all of those things, braided together into one impossible knot. The Granville Ballroom rose from the city like a temple of glass and steel, aglow from within like a lantern lit against the dusk. Its presence felt both intimidating and strangely inviting. When Logan pulled up in his weary, rust-kissed sedan, the valet accepted the keys without hesitation or raised brow, as if dignity weren't something reserved only for the polished and pristine. Inside, elegance thrummed in every surface. A woman in a black sequin dress stood at a check-in table, her eyes lighting up with immediate recognition when they landed on Hazel. "You must be Mr. McCrae," she said warmly, as though his arrival had been not only expected but hoped for. "We've been waiting for you." Hazel was whisked gently down a hallway to a room filled with laughter and bright art supplies, a sanctuary for children. Logan crouched down, kissed her forehead. "You'll be okay?" She nodded, brave. "You're just in the other room, right?" "Right," he whispered, more to himself than her. Then he stood up, exhaled slowly, and followed the swell of music. The ballroom opened before him like a dream, chandeliers floating like frozen stars, tables cloaked in white linen, stage bathed in golden light. Waiters slipped silently between guests, and the gentle hum of conversation hovered beneath the notes of a string quartet. Logan drifted to the margins of the room, a smudge on a silk canvas, unsure how long he could bear the weight of feeling out of place. And then he saw her, Elena, standing at the center of a knot of donors and board members. She looked impossibly poised. Her gown shimmered midnight blue, as if stitched from constellations. Her hair was swept up, but a few soft curls framed her face. She looked like someone untouched by doubt, shaped entirely by control and purpose. He almost turned and left, but then her eyes met his, and something shifted. The armor cracked, her expression softened, and she stepped away from her circle without hesitation. The rhythm of her heels on marble sounded like punctuation, each step bringing her closer to him. When she reached him, she didn't waste a moment on pleasantries. No small talk, no pretense. She just reached for his hand and squeezed it. "You came. You invited me. I hoped you'd believe you belonged here." "I don't," he admitted, almost with a smile. Her gaze didn't flinch. "You do. And tonight, I'm going to prove it." Later, Elena stood beneath the soft stage lights. The room stilled, air thick with anticipation. She didn't hold a script, just a single folded sheet of paper she tucked into her pocket. "I've spent most of my adult life building things," she began. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of confession. "Companies, portfolios, partnerships, and walls. Tall ones, strong ones. The kind meant to keep me moving fast and untouched." A pause. Her eyes searched the room and landed on Logan. A few months ago, one of those walls cracked. She inhaled. "I watched a man exhausted, overworked, hand his daughter to a stranger so he could help save someone else. He didn't know he was being watched. He didn't do it for thanks. He did it because it was right." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Logan felt like the air had been knocked from his lungs. He wanted to disappear, but couldn't look away. That man reminded me that the strongest people often don't speak their truths loudly. They live them. Elena's voice thickened. "We talk about impact in this field, big numbers, sweeping change. But real impact? Sometimes it's a father reading bedtime stories by flashlight because the heat's been cut, or fixing someone else's water heater while his own sink leaks, or just staying when it would have been easier to walk away." She blinked against the emotion. "Tonight, I want to honor that kind of strength, the kind that doesn't get headlines, but changes everything." The room erupted in applause. Logan sat frozen, heart trembling. He hadn't realized Elena had left the stage until she was beside him again, extending her hand. "Dance with me." He hesitated. "You just gave a speech about me. I think that's enough attention for one night." She smiled softly. "Just one dance. I promise not to step on your toes." They moved onto the floor. At first, it was awkward. Logan hadn't danced since his wedding, but Elena didn't care. She simply held his hand, rested her other on his shoulder, and swayed gently, like none of it mattered except being here now. You didn't have to say all that, he murmured. I wanted to. It was personal. And it was true. He looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, he didn't see Elena the powerhouse, or the untouchable executive. He saw a woman who had known loss, who had broken, and rebuilt, just like him. Then a burst of giggles came barreling through the air. Hazel, barefoot, beaming, charging toward them. Daddy. He lifted her into his arms, and Elena laughed. Hazel looked between them, then leaned in with a whisper that stilled them both. I want her to stay. Logan didn't answer, because in that moment, for the first time since everything fell apart, he believed it too. Outside, the sun had long since dipped behind the Cincinnati skyline, but inside the Granville ballroom, the light lingered, golden, warm, sacred, like the moment before a miracle. Guests slowly filtered out, their laughter trailing behind them. Logan remained near the edge of the dance floor, Hazel fast asleep in his arms, her breath soft against his chest. She still smelled faintly of baby shampoo and crayons. Elena approached quietly, her steps soft. She sat beside him without a word. Hazel stirred, and Logan instinctively rocked her back to sleep, the motion as natural to him now as breathing. You gave her a night she'll never forget, Elena said gently. She gave it to me first. They sat and shared silence, not the awkward kind, but the deep, steadying kind, the kind that tethers souls together. I wasn't sure I should come, Logan confessed. Thought everyone would see what I really am. And what's that? Elena asked, someone barely holding it all together. She turned fully toward him, her eyes fierce and kind. I see someone who already did the hardest part. You stayed, even when it hurt, even when you didn't think you could. Hazel sees that, and she trusts it. He couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Elena's voice softened. I spent so many years building walls to stop myself from falling again. And then I met you, and her, and I realized, sometimes the fall isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a delicate silver locket, placing it in his palm. He opened it. Inside was a photo not of her, but of a hospital bracelet. The name read, Baby Girl Hallberg. The date, nearly 2 decades ago. My daughter, Elena whispered. I never got to hold her. Just saw her through the glass, before they took her away. I wasn't brave enough to fight then. I let others decide. Logan's breath caught. I'm not telling you this for sympathy, she continued. I'm telling you because, for the first time, I want something real. She looked at Hazel, then at him. I know I'll never replace Holly, and I'm not trying to. But I love her, Logan, and I love this. What I feel with both of you. I want to be part of it. All of it. The good, the hard, the everyday. She swallowed hard. Can I be her mom? It didn't hang in the air. It landed. Like truth. Like home. Logan didn't answer with words. Instead, he stood, still holding Hazel close, and faced Elena fully. His eyes were wet but steady. You already are. Her lip trembled. When she stepped forward, he shifted Hazel into one arm and wrapped the other around Elena. They stood there, the 3 of them, beneath the final flickering lights of the ballroom. No music, no applause, just them. Later that night, back at the apartment, Logan tucked Hazel into bed. Elena lingered in the doorway, unsure. Hazel stirred. Sing the song, she mumbled. Elena blinked. What song, sweet pea? The one from the box. You always play it. Elena stepped forward, sat beside the bed, and opened the tiny wooden music box. The melody drifted out, soft and familiar. Hazel smiled, then slipped back into dreams. I didn't know she remembered, Elena whispered. She remembers everything, Logan said, especially the people who make her feel safe. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't hesitate. Outside on the balcony, the city glowed beneath them. Come, unmoving. You're not running anymore, Logan said. No, Elena agreed. I'm done running. He looked at her. Then stay. For pancakes. For finger painting. For burnt toast and unicorn dreams. A smile tugged at her lips. That sounds like everything I never knew I needed. He leaned in, Not because he had to, but because love had found space inside the healing. Their kiss wasn't fireworks. It wasn't sweeping. It was real. Not the beginning of a love story, but the middle of one they had already started. Spring didn't arrive with fanfare. It came quietly, soft as breath, in the way frost vanished from the windows, in Hazel's drawings, suddenly bursting with pinks and yellows, and how the apartment began to feel not like a shelter, but a home. One Tuesday morning in late March, golden light bathed the kitchen. Hazel sat barefoot at the table, crunching cereal and humming. Elena's music box sat open beside her crayons. Elena says we should plant sunflowers on the balcony, Hazel said between bites. I told her they'd block the whole sky. Logan smiled, flipping a pancake. Maybe that's the point. She wants to make a jungle. Hazel giggled. A sunflower jungle. She's full of wild ideas, he said. Guess she fits right in. Hazel beamed, like he told her the world was made of glitter and safety. And in a way it was. Because somehow, through all the cracks and quiet miracles, they'd become a family. And families grow toward the light. She didn't move in with grand gestures or cardboard boxes. No dramatic declarations. No keys held up like trophies. No, Elena's arrival into their lives came the way spring slips in after a brutal winter, quietly, with small kindnesses that spoke louder than words ever could. A second toothbrush appeared beside Logan's in the bathroom, as if it had always belonged. Fresh towels folded with care found their way into the linen closet. Books she loved nestled beside his on the living room shelf, and a single-framed photo, her father's, face creased with wisdom and time, sat proudly next to Hazel's colorful paper crafts. It wasn't cinematic. It was better. It was real. Their days settled into a rhythm, a soft cadence composed of morning chaos and evening peace. Breakfast was a tangle of scrambled eggs, mismatched socks, and mad dashes for forgotten lunchboxes. Logan, now working full-time at the community center, poured himself into teaching others how to mend what they once believed was beyond repair. Pipes, wiring, their own self-worth. Afternoons were filled with laughter and learning, while evenings slowed to a hush. Hazel told wild, made-up stories from the bath, while Elena read aloud from worn poetry books, her voice wrapping around Logan like a lullaby as he stirred dinner on the stove. Sometimes there were no words, just the language of presence. Glances that lingered, fingers brushing softly. The silence no longer meant loneliness, it was safety. Shared, understood. They never called it perfect. They called it theirs. One sun-drenched Saturday, Logan was rummaging through the storage room at the center, sorting tools and cables, when his hand fell on something familiar. An old folder, edges worn from time. The paper inside still crisp. It was the very same folder Elena had handed him that night, the first night. The invitation to a world he wasn't sure he belonged to. He flipped it open. His name was still there. Typed clean, bold, unshaken. Like it had been waiting. You all right? Elena's voice floated in from the doorway. She stood there, hair pulled back. A smudge of flour painting her cheek from the morning's muffin-making with Hazel. She looked like home. He held up the folder, smiling softly. I almost said no. She stepped into the room, warmth in her gaze. I know. You believed in me, he said, voice rough with memory, before I believed in myself. I just held the mirror, she murmured. You did the rest. He closed the folder and placed it back on the shelf. Funny, isn't it? I thought I was the one trying to save others. Turns out I was the one who needed saving. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around his waist. We all needed it in our own way. Logan pulled her in tighter. You weren't just a chapter, Elena. You were the shift in my whole story. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. So were you. That evening, they climbed out onto the fire escape, a shared ritual now. Hazel nestled between them, wrapped in a blanket too big for her small frame, her face turned upward, toward the stars, just beginning to pierce the indigo sky. That one's mine, Hazel declared, pointing at the brightest point in the sky. Logan chuckled. You don't even know its name. I don't need to, she said confidently. I named Hazel anyway. Elena laughed, pulling her closer. Sounds about right. Hazel leaned against her. Do you think stars miss people? Logan blinked. What do you mean, sweetheart? I mean, maybe the stars were people. People who got so full of love, they just popped. And now they shine forever, trying to reach back to the people they left behind. Neither adult spoke right away. The thought lingered like incense. Finally, Elena whispered, I think they do, baby. But I also think they find new people to shine for. Hazel yawned. Like us. Exactly like us. Later inside, they tucked her into bed. As her eyes fluttered shut, Hazel turned to Elena and whispered through the veil of sleep, Are you staying forever? Elena kissed her forehead, heart trembling. As long as you'll have me. Hazel nodded, already half asleep. Good. I think you're already a mom. Logan stood in the doorway, watching them. Something stirred deep in his chest. Something he didn't think he'd ever feel again. Not fragile love. Not fleeting emotion. But the strong, quiet love that endures. The kind that stays. Later, the two of them sat together on the couch, hands tangled in a knot of quiet devotion. The apartment was hushed, but not hollow. I never imagined this, Logan murmured. Not after everything that happened. Elena rested her head on his shoulder. Me neither. I stopped imagining because this is better than anything I thought I deserved. She tilted her head and met his gaze. You always deserved this, Logan. So did Hazel. So did we. He kissed her. Not a kiss of sparks or spectacle, but one of belonging. One of quiet, hard-earned truth. And when the lights dimmed and the world slowed around them, Logan sat and listened. To the soft rhythm of Hazel's breathing through the wall. To the wind humming against the window panes. To the echo of a memory that would never quite leave him. A memory of the night he handed his daughter to a stranger. Because it was the right thing to do. And that stranger? She had become the very thing he thought he'd never find again. Everything. The music box on Hazel's nightstand played its lullaby again. Notes sweet, warm, and full of history. A reminder that yes, the world breaks, but it also mends. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to reach across the shattered pieces, healing doesn't just return, it stays. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it brings you home. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from? Has a simple act of kindness ever changed your life in unexpected ways? Don't forget to subscribe if soul-stirring stories like this are your kind of thing. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next story.